In the world of medicine, where every second counts, a single moment of clarity can literally mean the difference between life and death. Today we're diving into a secret, a pretty revolutionary way of thinking that helps doctors cut through the chaos and ultimately save lives. It all kicks off with this one story, a mystery, really. It's about a medical resident in the US whose knowledge was just so deep, so next level, that he became something of a legend in the hospital. So, the big question is, how on earth did he do it? His colleagues, even the really senior doctors, were just stumped. The story goes that this young Japanese resident's understanding of medicine was just on another planet. When they got stuck, they'd actually go ask him for advice. And they all whispered the same thing: he must have a system. But nobody knew what it was. Well, today we're going to pull back that curtain. But first, to really get why his method is so brilliant, you have to understand the problem he was trying to solve. And that problem is the absolutely immense, almost superhuman pressure that's put on a doctor's mind every single day. Have you ever felt like you're juggling too many things at once? Well, there's a reason for that. A cognitive psychologist named George A. Miller came up with what he called the magical number 7 plus or minus 2. It basically means that most of us can only hold about 5 to 9 pieces of information in our head at any one time. That's it. That's the limit of our focus. So here's the disconnect, and it is a huge one. Our brains are built to handle, say, 7 things. But in medicine, a single symptom, like a simple headache, could have dozens of possible causes a doctor needs to think about. That's way, way more than the 9 items our short-term memory can handle. And then, let's throw in another massive challenge: pure exhaustion. We all know medical residents work these crazy long hours. Well, get this. After being awake for just 17 hours, a doctor's performance drops to the same level as someone with a 0.05% blood alcohol level. In some places, that's legally drunk. At 24 hours awake, it's 0.10%, which is legally drunk anywhere. A fried memory and exhaustion, that is a dangerous, dangerous mix. Okay, so how in the world do you get around these basic human limits? This is where that secret system comes into play. It turns out it wasn't about memorizing more stuff. It was about seeing things more clearly. The entire system is built on the incredible power of visual learning. Leonardo da Vinci was talking about this 500 years ago. He called the eye the window of the soul. He knew it's our most powerful way of understanding the world. It's the main highway for information getting into our brain. And yet, for so long, traditional medical training has just massively overlooked this. Let's just look at the science for a second. The data from cognitive psychology is pretty mind-blowing. A staggering 90% of all the information our brain takes in is visual. Think about that. We are fundamentally visual creatures. It's just how we're wired to learn and to make sense of a really complicated world. And it's not just that we absorb more information visually, we do it at a ridiculous speed. Our brains process images 60,000 times faster than they process text. I mean, that's the difference between understanding something in a single glance versus having to read and reread a dense paragraph over and over. And this, right here, might be the most important part of all. When we read a bunch of text, that info usually goes into our shaky short-term memory, and we only end up remembering about 20% of it. But visual information, that's different. That gets hardwired directly into our long-term memory. It's stored more permanently, and it's so much easier to recall, especially when you're under pressure. All right, so let's move this from theory into the real world. How does this system actually work when a patient's health is on the line? Let's use one of the most serious symptoms a doctor can face: chest pain. And let's see how a visual approach can just cut right through all the confusion. So, step 1 isn't to create some long, complicated list. It's a kind of visual triage. The system makes you immediately think about the fast killers, the handful of conditions that are the most immediate threat to life. It's not just a list to memorize. It's a mental picture, a checklist, that makes sure you don't miss the most critical possibilities when every single second matters. So once those immediate dangers are checked off, the system then visually maps out other potential causes. Instead of this jumbled, stressful list in your head, you have a clear, organized mental image. It organizes everything from common stuff like acid reflux, all the way to rarer things like Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, which is also called broken heart syndrome. And yes, that's a real thing, a temporary heart condition brought on by extreme stress. This whole approach just turns chaos into clarity. So, what we're really looking at here is a whole new way to learn medicine. It's this incredibly powerful method that fuses the hard precision of science with the beautiful, intuitive clarity of art. And now for the final reveal. What was that legendary resident's secret system? Well, it wasn't some magic trick. His entire method was inspired by one book, Internal Medicine Differential Diagnoses Through Illustrations. It's a guide that was specifically created to do one thing: turn dense pages of medical text into clear, unforgettable, and life-saving pictures. And the story of how this book came to be is just incredible. The author reached out to this brilliant, self-taught medical illustrator, Professor Krostic, who was 83 years old at the time. At first, the professor said he was too old for the project, but he was so captivated by the idea of helping students and doctors that he ended up dedicating the next 4 years of his life to creating these amazing illustrations. Come on, we've all heard this saying a million times, right? But think about it from the perspective of a doctor who's exhausted staring at a wall of complex information. That saying takes on a whole new level of meaning. A picture isn't just worth 1,000 words. It's worth clarity, it's worth confidence, and it's worth time. And really, that's what it all boils down to. This visual way of thinking isn't just some neat academic idea. It's a tool that's designed for the front lines of medicine. Which leaves us with one last thing to think about. If a picture really is worth 1,000 words, what is it worth when it helps save a life?